For this assignment, we are going to do a little follow along activity. So go ahead and open Illustrator, and we're going to make a new file that is a landscape, letter size landscape. So just hit New Document, Letter, and make sure that the orientation is not up and down, but is rather side to side, landscape, and hit Create. So here I have my landscape. I just want to make a quick note before we get started that up here you'll notice this drop down of windows. These are all different toolbars, different things that you can use, and if they do not have a check mark next to them, that means they're not visible right now. So let's say hypothetically we wanted to see our brushes palette. We would click brushes and voila, it appears. Now you can move this around wherever it makes sense to you. You can even have it attached to this other one. So you can kind of switch between your colors, brushes, and symbols. It's up to you. What we're going to need today is our normal toolbox, and we're going to go ahead and do window color and have our color palette showing up here. Something else that we're going to want is our line window right there, but don't worry about that right away here. So what we're going to do, first thing, is I want you to go over here and notice that there's a rectangle tool, and it says M. But if you click and hold on it, this other little sidebar will show up, and you can make rectangles, you can make ellipses or ovals, you can make polygons, stars, and there's a line segment tool. So the first thing let's do is just to start with the basics and make some rectangles. So I'm going to click and drag, and you've made a rectangle. Click and drag, you made a rectangle. If you notice over here, this is similar to Photoshop or GIMP. There is a fill and a stroke. In Photoshop, it would be a foreground color and a background color. But here we have a fill, which is the inside of our shape, and the stroke, which is the vector, the path around the outside. So if you double click on stroke, you can change the color of the stroke. And then if you click on fill, you can change the inside of your shape. So here we go. If we click off of it with our little, I switched over here to our selection tool and click off of it, we can see that it has like a red stroke and a green fill. So I'm going to go ahead and make 3 more of these rectangles. And you can play around with the fill if you want and the stroke. So here I'll go ahead and just make another one here, another one here, another one. Now, the next thing I want to teach you about is how you can align objects in your project. So I want you to just go back to your selection tool, so you can hit V if you'd like on your keyboard, and you're going to select all of them. And I have this align palette here that has says align. If this is not up on your screen, go ahead and go to Window, find Align, and click that there to make it show up. So we have our align palette. And the cool thing is all of these shapes that I have selected now, I can align perfectly centered by clicking vertical center. I can also align them on the top, so they're all lined up on the top. I can align them all on the bottom. I can align them all centered like that as well. There's lots of different ways. You can also distribute them. So if I do Command Z here, you can distribute them so that they're evenly spaced right here from the centered one out. It's kind of an interesting thing you can play around with. So go ahead and take a moment to, you have your 5 rectangles. I want you to make 5 rectangles, and I want you to play around with aligning these rectangles. But at the end, I want you to have them all, and I'm doing Command Z right now to back up what I was doing. At the end, I want you to have them all be vertically aligned at the bottom like this, because we're going to end up making a little neighborhood. So play around with all the aligning tools, but in the end, I want you to have 5 rectangles or squares that are all aligned like this. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, and I'm just going to make them have all a black stroke. And we'll go ahead and play around with the fill here. So I can click on these. If, by the way, just a side note, let's say that you don't want a fill right here. If you look underneath, you can go none. But if you select none, that means that if you click right in the middle of this, you're not selecting anything. There's nothing there. So if you let's say that you want to try and move this rectangle and you click in the middle and you're like, this isn't working, nothing's moving. It's because there's nothing in there to click. So in that case, you would have to click on the path and then you can adjust the fill. Okay. So go ahead and I moved these out of alignment. Let me realign them. Boop. And I'm going to go ahead and change the fill on these so there's some fun colors. Sure, it'll be the wild pink house. Okay. So take a moment to make your 5 rectangles, all with different fills. So play around with giving them a different fill. All right, once you've done that, I want to go back up to this rectangle tool, click and hold, and you'll see that there's the ellipse, the polygon, the star, and the line. Let's play around with the line tool real quick. So we need a horizon line for our little neighborhood that we're making. So click on the line tool, and your line tool is going to make, it's only going to have a stroke. It's not going to have a fill because it's just a line. There's nothing to fill there. So you can click, and we're going to make a horizon line right on the bottom of our buildings. And we're going to drag it over. And something about that you might remember from the last video is that if you press and hold shift, so here I'm going to press shift, it'll snap it to either a 90-degree angle or a 45-degree angle. So right there's that 45-degree angle, or it'll snap down to that 90-degree angle. So I'm going to have it snap to that 90-degree angle so it's perfectly horizontal. Drag it over here and release. And there is my little horizon line. So this is going to be the ground, this is going to be the sky. Let's say that I want my sky to be a nice light blue. So I'm going to go back to my line, segment, press and hold to go back to rectangle. And I'm going to click and drag our rectangle right here to be my sky. I'm going to adjust the fill to be, a stereotypical light blue. Oh no, it blocked all my buildings. So what I need to do is send this little rectangle, or big rectangle I should say, to the very back of my art piece. Now, eventually we're going to get into layers like we've used in GIMP or Photoshop, but for the purposes of just getting our feet wet, we're going to go ahead and just click on this rectangle. We're going to right click on it. So if you're using a Mac, that you're going to have to do press and hold Control on your keyboard and then click on it. That's the way that you right click on a Mac. So press and hold Control, click, and this should show up. We'll go to Arrange, and we'll say Send to the back. Now it's behind all of those other rectangles. So here we have our blue sky, we have our 5 buildings, and we have the ground. We can go ahead and make something for our ground too, some color. It's up to you what you want it to be. Let's do a nice rich dark green for our ground. There we go. And you can see that my rectangle goes off. This is called an artboard, and that doesn't matter. It means if you printed it, that would not show up. It would just be off of the page. All right, Command 0 to fit to screen. Awesome. So we have our 5 buildings, our grass, our sky. We learned that we can arrange things from front to back in our image, almost like imagine if you're playing around with collage and you can put a piece of paper behind another piece of paper. That's what we're doing. Well, we need some roofs on these buildings here. So let's go back to our shapes. There's a rectangle tool, click and hold. And I want you to now select the star tool. So the star tool is kind of fun because, yes, you can make a star. Right now you can see it's a triangle because I was already tinkering with this. But when you first click, it'll be a star. And then on your keyboard, while you're still dragging it, you can use your arrow tools and you can arrow up or down to add sides to your shape. So this is adding all these different sides. So that's where the star tool is pretty helpful because you can make triangles with it. You can make 4-sided, 5, 6, 7. You can keep going and make these really cool little bursts if you want to. But we're going to make some roofs, so we're going to do a triangle. And those are the up and down keys to do that. So we're going to make a triangle, and I want it to be nice and flat, so I can press and hold shift to keep it nice and horizontal and vertical so it's not cockeyed. Press and hold shift, make a little or a big roof, and you can drag it on top of one of your little houses and adjust the size as needed. And let's say that I'm having a hard time aligning this and getting it centered on the house. What I can do is click on this roof, press and hold shift, and click on the bottom. So if you're trying to select multiple shapes, you can press and hold shift. So now, let's say I wanted to select this roof, this house, and this rectangle. I can press the roof, press and hold shift, select the house, keep shift held down, press and hold this, and now I can adjust the fill in all of those shapes because I have only those 3 selected. So shift is a magical button to know for Illustrator. Anyway, so I'm going to press and hold shift to select the roof and the house. If you're wondering why I didn't just go ahead and click and drag, it's because I have this blue background, and since they're all in the same layer, I would have selected that as well. So what I'm going to do is select the roof, the bottom, and I'm going to align them so that they're centered, and then I can move that little roof down. Beautiful. So now we have that roof. And I need another triangle, so I can go back over to my shapes here, make another triangle, press and hold shift to keep it nice and horizontal. And maybe this one will squish by dragging it down. Squish. That's a nice little short triangle. And then I need a triangle for this little skinny dude, so I'll go ahead and make a triangle for that one, pressing and holding shift so that it's nice and horizontal. You can see that as I drag, do you see these intersection lines? Illustrator is so wonderful because it knows that you probably want to do that as a graphic designer, so it'll help you out as you're doing things. Look at these little guidelines. Okay, I'm throwing another piece of knowledge at you. Are you ready for another shortcut? The next shortcut is, let's say I like this triangle so much and I want that exact triangle over here, but I don't want to have to redraw it. You can copy and paste it. Another faster way to do it is to, so copying and pasting would be Command C and then Command V. So let's do that really quick. Command C, Command V. There it is. And I can move it over here. Beautiful. But if you're a nerd and you want to know another way to do this, you can click on it, press and hold the Alt or Option key. It's right next to the Command key. Press and hold that. Click and drag it. And you just made a copy. So that's kind of fun because you can press and hold Alt and click and drag for days all over. And it's kind of nice because just copy and pasting, every time you paste, it's going to paste in the, I'm hearing paste, 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 paste. You're going to paste in the exact same spot. So using Alt is kind of nice because you can just click and drag it. It's like copying and pasting and telling exactly where you want it to be pasted to. So that's sort of a fun one. It's not, you know, I'm not expecting you to use it all the time, but it is fun to know if you get familiar with it. So let's adjust this stupid little roof I made there. Okay. So now we have our 5 houses with 5 roofs. At this point, you can play around with your fills to adjust the coloring a little bit. Let me see, let me look at my notes. Is there something else I want to teach you? We covered shape, the shift trick, pressing Alt to make the same shape again, aligning shape, stroke and fill we covered, making lines we've covered, stroke of the line. You know, I don't think we covered stroke of the line, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that little line, wherever he is. Here, I have to move some stuff to get to it. All right. Here's our stroke. And there's actually, you can adjust the thickness of the stroke. So under the Properties window, you can make your stroke really thick. So I'm adjusting it to 15 points, sort of the measurement there. You can make a really thick stroke if you want to. We can get more into these effects of different things you can do to the stroke. You can make it have like a feathered effect. There's a lot of things you can do, but we're gonna stick with that today. Keep it simple. But you can adjust the thickness of the stroke. In fact, we can select this house, and let's say we don't want a stroke on it at all. We can click on the stroke and then hit none, And that way it's a nice seamless shape with no outline at all. So you can get rid of your strokes if you prefer that look. Okay. Order. We talked about ordering things on the page so that you can put one object behind another one. We talked about the star tool, how you can go up and down with the arrows to make it triangles, or you could make it into a decagon or whatever, however many sided shape you want it to be. Well, actually, it wouldn't be a decagon. It'd be a multi-side or a multi-pointed star. I digress. Anyway, you can do that with the other one. So, sorry, slightly disjointed. Click and drag or move over here to the polygon tool. We can click and drag on it, and we can do arrow up, and that's how you can make that decagon, heptagon type of thing. You can keep adding sides to that. Back down to a triangle. So you can do a triangle with this shape too. Doesn't matter. All right. So, cancel. Delete that. The last thing I wanted to show you is, let's say we wanted to make some clouds. Let's just there's ways to draw it in, but we're just going to use shapes for today. So let's go ahead and say we want clouds. We want them to be kind of this light pale blue, and we want the stroke to be non-existent. And then we're going to do a few different ovals that are kind of just overlapping to make this sort of bloopy MS Paint style cloud. And let's say that you want to adjust all of these at once, but you don't want to adjust, you want to move them around, but you don't want to have to move each one all the time. There's a way to group things together. So what you can do is select them, press and hold Shift to select. So all of these ovals are selected now, and we can actually go to Object, Group, the shortcut there, and that's what I would use is Command G to group those. So now they're grouped. So if I click on one and I want to drag it, it's going to drag all of them. So that's kind of a nice thing. And if you ever want to ungroup them, you can also do that by going to Object, Ungroup, or do Shift, Command G. So there's our little bloopy, silly cloud. So hopefully, I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. Yep, you can group things. All right. So what I want you to do today is just spend some time making yourself a little neighborhood that doesn't look as terrible as the one that I just made here. I want to include some doors, windows, a cloud, or a tree. But I want you to try and use all of these different things that I covered in this video at some point. So ultimately, it doesn't matter how your neighborhood looks as long as you're learning how to use this program. So thank you for listening. Good luck. Have fun.